was pressure from below, which was creating this momentum towards peace, and not people from above.
რომ არ ყოლოდა მას პატრონი ან რაღაც თანხა გარკვეული არ გადაიხადა, სამწუხაროდ მეც ესეთ პირობებში მომიწია ცხოვრება.
Tak jak chcę, że staję się bardziej wolna dzięki temu.
Magsama-sama kami. Meron palang nakaso yung ganoong diwa ng EDSA.
I was determined I was going to jail so I could go and get my freedom.
Esa época un gobernador conservador que no podía salir a la calle, pero la gente salió.
Apartheid was crushed, was the people of South Africa from all angles came together.
Societies around the world have been shaped by courageous individuals and groups who demanded their civil rights and fought for recognition. Civic Voices is an international civic education project that brings students into direct contact with these changemakers so they can learn in a personal way about the struggles that shape their countries and also see themselves as actors in the ongoing struggle for human rights and democracy.
Berlin Wall. You all have lots to say about that. What do you...
Civic Voices involves teachers and students in the United States and 7 other countries that have experienced profound social change.
The subject of this interview is Mr. Noor Abraham.
We were one big happy family, but I think that was a problem. The apartheid government didn't like that, see? So I still believe that is one of the reasons they declared District 6 a whites-only area in 1966.
Students in all these countries use Civic Voices resources to conduct first-person oral history interviews with civic activists in their communities.
We learned the true value of freedom. We learned what it means and how important it is.
But I do remember Bloody Sunday. My brother, who was shot dead, it was his very first march.
I have no connections with Bloody Sunday. I was just learning it in classes. I didn't know much about it until we met John Kelly today, and he gave us a lot of information, so I think I have a better perspective of everything that happened on the day.
It has given them opportunities that they wouldn't have had to connect with people and listening in a non-judgmental way, which nothing else that they do in the curriculum would teach them.
Let's hope Bloody Sunday never ever happens again. And the legacy is learn from our pain.
He says you're being offered a seat in the House of Lords. I was the first woman in Northern Ireland ever to be offered a life peerage. I said yes right away. I have a very bad habit of saying yes to everything. And then
she brought like women politics and stuff, like she got more involved with, and like brought like other women into it. And it was like really good that way. Like, so
you just look at these men and you think that it's just men who do these things, but when it actually she shows us that it's women who does it.
And we have to try and energise young women to be taking these opportunities. That's why I was so glad it was a group of young women were questioning me this morning. And I hope in some way some of the things they heard from me will inspire them to go on to do great things.
¿Ya? Bueno, mi nombre es Manuel Chacón.
Escogimos a Manuel Chacón ya, pues más que todo de ser un activista cívico, vimos que ha hecho grandes proyectos para ayudar ciertas comunidades aquí en Bogotá. Y nos contó, primero que todo estuvimos con él un día y nos estuvo contando un poco sobre su vida, sobre las cosas que ha hecho, sobre su conocimiento y otros movimientos que ha hecho.
El derecho a que los jóvenes accedan a otras versiones de las memorias de la problemática social en el país hace que, que tengan estas otras versiones y puedan contrastarla con las versiones institucionales.
Llegué porque el 1 de mayo del 2005 mi hijo fue asesinado a garrote por la Fuerza de Seguridad Represiva de la Policía Nacional, más conocido como el SMAT. La presentación de pendones se llama Galería de la Memoria y esto viene de algo que se llama el Movimiento Nacional de Víctimas de Crímenes de Estado. Hasta cierto punto intimidado por la calidad de las preguntas que hacían los jóvenes y saber la investigación que estaban haciendo. Entonces vi ahí un proceso en la base de jóvenes, porque no hacían preguntas simples, sino preguntas objetivas y muy directas. Entonces fue muy agradable entender, y un poco de susto a pesar de las cosas, porque no piensa uno que estos jóvenes ya tengan esa capacidad de hacerle este tipo de preguntas.
Voces cívicas, lo más importante que deja es romper el que la historia no quede como literatura. Es la mejor clase de historia que uno se puede fajar en la vida. Es basada en la realidad, sustentada en la realidad y sobre todo con la capacidad que ellos se sientan partícipes de lo que tiene que ser la nueva historia en Colombia, en el caso nuestro.
Every part of the process is a learning experience. The selection of the interview subject, developing the questions, transcribing the results, and looking for practical connections between the interview and civic concepts they study in class.
The students started learning the background of the issues. Then they started to make decisions as to who they were going to interview. After the interviews were done, they did some research on information they didn't know, so they actually able to teach themselves.
Salman wants the difference between India and Pakistan.
And then they brought it back to the class and then shared with the class, so they were helping each other learn.
When I teach the apartheid movement in the classroom, they said that happened a long time ago, it's old news, we don't need to go back there, let's do something more exciting. They're so excited to actually be able to use a video camera, to have a laptop and to showcase their work. The technology will actually bring history back.
Interviews are then uploaded to an International Democracy Memory Bank on the Civic Voices website, where they can be accessed by researchers and students around the world.
It went online, global, so everyone could watch it. It was a big thing. I think we're all very excited, to see ourselves on the internet.
We're trying to talk about what concepts are common.
Civic Voices teachers have collaborated to develop classroom materials that harness the power of personal stories to enhance student understanding of core democratic concepts.
Different subjects in social studies like a rule of law, freedom of expression, freedom of association is very important because we the people should be engaged or involved to participate in the different political issues in our country.
I have not been involved in this project. I will consider this experience as one of my most fruitful years in teaching, because I believe that if children will be empowered to do this kind of things, the impact will be impressive and the impact will be so strong.
This project gives a human face to history. It means that thanks to the interviews, they are able to see not only words, but they are able to see the feelings.
The Civic Voices project is also connecting a global community of educators. Through peer-to-peer training and international exchanges, civic and history teachers are improving their instruction and learning how the human rights struggle in their own communities connect to those in other parts of the world.
Our plan with the lesson was to have a discussion about democracy, the different concepts of democracy, and then what we wanted to do is to focus on issues of democracy in our country.
Y que mis muchachos las vean a ustedes y los vean en conjunto, viendo al pueblo americano.
Every experience you have and every person you meet, I think changes you in some way, and I think that's just an added benefit that I then take back to my students as I have a better understanding of the world. I've developed a little more compassion. Be able to tell them like these amazing people that are putting their lives on the line to change their country.
Teachers' unions are central to the success and sustainability of the Civic Voices project. The American Federation of Teachers Educational Foundation conceived the project and serves as lead partner. And teachers' unions in each of the partnered countries administer the project. Through Education International, a global federation of education unions, Civic Voices' reach extends to teachers all around the world.
პროექტში მონაწილე 8 ქვეყანაში პროექტთან ხორციელებს პროფკავშირები, რადგან პროფკავშირები არის სწორედ დემოკრატიული ინსტიტუცია, ეს ის ორგანიზაცია, რომელიც ხალხს მოუწოდებს გაერთიანებისაკენ.
Projects as the Civic Voices, where unions are at the leadership of this and bringing young people forward and encouraging them to play their part, I think are vitally important. I think any information or knowledge which young people pick up through this project will enable them to make their voices heard.
Having our young people understand and be engaged in the civic life, in the life of their communities from the earliest of ages, I think transforms how they see the classroom. And if what they're doing in the classroom is not connected to their communities, they start to disengage. They start to say, why am I learning this? But if they see how those two things are inextricably linked, then they become motivated learners and they understand why it's so important.
And that's what this project is about, to create a global village of educators through peer-to-peer international exchanges and make that concept real in as many places as we can. Any person can be the voice to create the change. And what teachers are, is they are the enablers of that voice.
Partners around the world are embedding Civic Voices materials within their national curricula, working to broaden the impact of the project and advance local education priorities.
What you learned in Civic Voices and your interview and how you felt about it.
Every little thing that you do counts. So
I think it fits really well into the social studies curriculum in general. Going beyond that, I think this is a perfect fit for what's coming with the Common Core curriculum. It's all about analyzing and being able to interpret primary sources and documents, and what a better way for kids to have that primary source access at their fingertips for not only the United States but the world.
If we don't pass down the stories, then the next generation won't be able to learn from them. And I think that's why we teach a lot of the history, because if we don't teach it, then it could happen all over again.
Civic Voices interviews and classroom materials are available on the Civic Voices website. Another project resource, Voices for Peace, uses the stories to explore nonviolent strategies for achieving social change.
Civic Voices lends itself very readily to, one, the skills needed in history, but also the greater democratic concepts of building a post-conflict society that all teachers in Northern Ireland have an obligation really to engage in.
The Civic Voices project is working to preserve these powerful first-person reflections while the participants are still able to speak for themselves.
High school students didn't know much about this time. In our official textbooks, there's very few information about democratic movement. So during this project, we give to students a lot of possibility to learn what was exactly happened at that time.
Тэр хөөсөлд оролцож байсан хүмүүс нөгөө нэг одоо амь бие үл яг л өгсөн чамаа гэж гар үсгийг зурж байсан. Одоогийн шинэ үеийн залуучуудад одоо энэ хөө арчлагддаг бэлгийг одоо өгсөн гэдэг байгаа шүү дээ.
The Memory Bank now holds hundreds of inspiring stories from around the world, with more being added every day.
And that's what being in civic action is all about.
Engaging with civil rights history on such a personal level inspires students to think about themselves as agents of change. They are not only students of history, but the next chapter in the story.
Like even in this interview now that's going on behind us, there is students that are Protestant and Catholic as well. So I think it'll be good to get the other side of the story too. You can't just have a sheltered existence. You need to sort of get the whole picture really.
Aprendimos que aparte que se pueden presentar miles de obstáculos en la vida, pero hay que superarlos, hay que sobresalir y no solamente pensar en nosotros, sino por bienes comunes. Y si tenemos en nuestras manos la oportunidad de poder ayudar a otras personas, es lo indicado.
Personally, I feel this project has brought about a great change in my life. I now know the real impacts apartheid had to the citizens of our country during that time. I now have some notion of atrocities of some of our fallen heroes faced during that time, which makes me appreciate present-day South Africa. This achievement makes me feel more positive and optimistic about our country's future. Life is more than just about me. It is also about my respective community and making a positive contribution to society.